Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Expats in Ukraine with your host, me, Corey. Today my guest, she is from Canada. Her name is Kaitlyn, not the other Kaitlyn we had before, but this is a new Kaitlyn, surprisingly from the same organization, Ukrainian Patriots. Surprisingly or unsurprisingly, all Kaitlyns are the same. I actually never seen you in the same room. So I don't know.
Yet. Not yet.
Exactly.
But we often are.
Yeah. So Kaitlyn is a humanitarian, and she's also the entrepreneur of Peace and Wellness. Kaitlyn, how are you? Jak sprawy?
Dobre, I'm very well today. How are you?
I'm doing amazing.
Good. Awesome.
Okay, so I don't know if you've seen my podcast before. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't.
Yes.
But I like to do like an icebreaker at the beginning of every episode.
Sure.
So it's like a this or that. I'll give you two options. You pick the best one.
Okay.
That is so people can understand you better,
Okay.
understand the Kaitlyn from Canada.
Yeah, good old
Alberta.
Canada. Alberta, yes. I'm a prairie girl. I'm a prairie West Coast girl. I'm kind of split in between, but.
Yeah, they say like Alberta is like, this like how the South is to the US, Alberta is to Canada.
We are kind of the Texas of Canada, yes.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
That's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but okay, so here are the options.
Okay, I'm ready.
Harvey's or Puzata Hata?
Oh, Pusata Hata.
Hey, what the hell's Harvey's? I was like,
Harvey's, okay, they have great deep fried pickles and curly fries. Pretty decent, but Pusata Hata all the way.
Yeah, I was just looking at different Canadian chains and like
Canadian fast
Harvey's.
food.
Yeah, I've been to Canada before,
Okay.
and I've never seen Harvey's.
It's not as popular now. I think we've adopted a lot of the American fast food chains.
Yeah, but I saw their menu. They still have poutine on their menu, right?
Everywhere has poutine.
Everywhere
That's
has
kind of a
poutine.
classic. Like even
Okay.
McDonald's,
McDonald's is poutine.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, but I loved poutine when I was there. I was in Montreal and I tried it for the first
So
time.
you were in the mecca of poutine as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's so good. Those cheese curds. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. it's pretty
What are
tasty.
cheese curds, by the way? It's like
It's just
it's cottage cheese or what is it?
no, it's like salted kind of, I don't know, condensed cheese, I
Condensed
suppose.
cheese. Yeah, it's
sort of.
it's very interesting.
There's
It's like
there's
nice-
different versions, of course, but
Yeah.
we'll have to make it sometime here.
Of course. Yeah, invites me if you ever make it.
Yes.
And
noted.
by the way, Thanksgiving is coming up this week.
We
but-
already had our Thanksgiving.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Canada is
Canadian.
different
It's
than
like
the United States. Yes.
How
We're
do-
like a
when do-
month earlier. It's in the beginning of October typically.
okay. So what are you giving thanks for?
I have a lot of things to give thanks for. Honestly, life, no day is promised. So every day to wake up and be safe, have, the sun come up is a something to be very thankful for.
Well, that's a great reason to be thankful.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I still have some time to think about what I'm going to be thankful
Yeah, you
for.
have
I still have
another
a couple days.
Couple days, good.
Yeah. It's really hard to find a turkey in Ukraine though.
You got to go out to the selo, to the village.
Yeah.
Sweet talk some babusia.
Exactly.
I need a turkey.
Yeah. I'm lost. I need turkey. Indyuk, да?
Indik, yep.
Indyk. Oh yeah,
Indyk.
that's right. It's Ukrainian. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so next, Vancouver Harbor or Dnipro River?
I'm going to have to say Vancouver Harbor. I'm sorry, Dnipro.
Vancouver
I'm sorry.
Harbor.
The water's
Wrong answer.
probably a little bit cleaner. Sorry, Dnipro.
Yeah. So, have you ever swam in the Vancouver Harbor, or is it like no swimming because like a
not
harbor?
on purpose, let's say.
Okay.
Yeah, not on purpose.
What do you? Just someone
Fall-
pushed you in?
yeah, exactly. Silly times on a boat or something.
Oh, okay, right on. Yeah. Oh, cool. I mean, the water's cold, right? It's like
Very
Vancouver.
cold.
Yeah, very cold.
Yeah,
Yeah. Have you been swimming in the Dnipro?
I have. Yes, same
was it on
idea.
accident?
Jumped off a boat or dipped in or something like that. But
Yeah. I mean, you're very in touch with traditions in Ukraine. Not
Yeah.
that they're Ukrainian traditions,
Yeah.
but they have this thing called Vodochrestia.
yes,
So, have you done that?
we used to engage in it a little bit when I was a kid, and I just actually enjoy cold dips anyways.
In Canada.
in Canada,
Really?
yeah.
You guys do it?
Yes, yeah. It's we'll go out to the cold lake or cold river or something like that. So yeah. it's
Yeah.
interesting.
Wow. No, I mean, I've done it a couple times here in Ukraine.
Yeah.
It's very fun. This last time I did it was like 2 years ago, but the Dnipro wasn't frozen.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it was really cold, but it just
But
wasn't
still,
frozen.
yeah.
But it's like, and like a few years before that, I did it and like the Dnipro was frozen. So it made it even more exciting.
Even
Yeah.
yes, cool.
Yeah. But okay. So next, ketchup chips or suhariki?
Oh man, that's a tricky one.
Ketchup chips. So
Okay,
Canadian.
but nobody here has had ketchup chips, so I'm gonna have to say ketchup chips. because
Ketchup
it's a very
chips.
specific, tasty item. that is, to Canada alone.
Yeah. There was this guy. Do you know who Nick Kroll is? He's a comedian from the US.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
I know the name. Yeah.
Yeah. He did some show. It's called the Nick Kroll Show,
Yeah.
and it was on Comedy Central. And then I guess he's originally from Canada, maybe. And he has this series. It's called Wheels Ontario, and he just makes fun of or he just does all the Canadian stereotypes. He's
I
like,
mean, they're too good and they're so true. So
he's
you
like, I
can't
have,
even deny
I have
them.
my loony. I want to decide between a bag of ketchup chips or a bag of milk.
Yes. Hey, we don't have bags of milk anymore. Okay,
Yeah.
we've developed.
It was so funny because he goes to Canada, Eric, so he goes to the US in one episode, and he's like, and he's like, so I'll take a bag of milk. And he's like, the American guy was like, a bag of milk.
What are you talking
And he's
about?
like, why do you keep it in a bag? And he goes, where would you keep it? And he's like, in a carton?
Yeah, we used to have these little crates. I mean, that's a little bit before my time, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it was hilarious. But anyways, I always like to show my Canadian friends like this kind of little mini comedy series.
Making fun of them.
Yeah, exactly.
But Canadians are funny. We're pretty lighthearted. We don't take it so.
Yeah. No, it's great. Okay, last one. Vancouver or Kyiv?
You know, I actually love Vancouver and Kyiv for the same reason. Big, beautiful city, lots to offer, and on the water in some kind of way on the water. So now my heart is in Kyiv.
Heart is in Kyiv.
Yes.
Okay, what makes Kyiv so special? Like, how connected are you to the city?
Getting more and more connected. When I lived here, we lived in 5 different cities, so we got to experience them all kind of just for a couple of months. But the more and more I come back to Kyiv, there is so much to offer. You can literally do anything. You can go play pool, you can go to a movie, there's always events, concerts, everything. I mean, it being the capital is just, you're never going to be bored.
Yeah.
Kind of stuff.
So you've been like all over Ukraine then? You said like 5 cities or something like this?
Yeah, five cities that we lived in, but I've traveled around and always wanted to explore.
Okay, so what
more.
are these cities, these 5 cities?
So we lived in Kyiv at the beginning, moved to Lviv, Chernivtsi, Lutsk, Poltava.
Okay, yeah, I guess
is that 5?
That's 5, yeah.
Yeah, that's 5.
And okay, so what is the best out of all those 5 cities?
I don't know. That people always ask me that after the year that we lived around, and I love all of them for different reasons. We connected with the people in different ways. I loved living in Chernivtsi because we were there around all the holidays. So Ukrainian Christmas, Malanka, we got to go out to the villages and explore that kind of thing. In Lutsk, it was also just a totally different experience. They all have their loveliness in some way, I think. They're special places, all of it.
Yeah, but you sound like a big city girl, right?
I think now, yeah, a little bit more of the big city. I like to get out of the city. I love nature, but I like to be where the action is. I'm a busybody, so the big city fits my personality, I think.
Yeah. I mean, Kyiv is a beautiful city.
Totally.
And I love the city. Like you said, there's so much to do here. I met so many amazing peoples, and this is like a good hub because you can, go east if you want. You're not too far from maybe central or western Ukraine.
Exactly.
And the train system works very well here.
Yes.
I was talking to a previous guest. Now we were talking about it like it's like time traveling. You just go to sleep and you wake up and you're a different part of Ukraine.
Yeah, new oblast. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes, that is superior to Canada because we're so large. Unless you're driving for hours and hours, the train system just is not that sophisticated.
I mean, I don't know if it's better or worse in Canada than the U.S., but the U.S. it's horrible for trains.
The U.S. at least, from my experience on the East Coast, you guys have it a little bit more set up.
I'm from the
in
West
Canada,
Coast.
I don't think anybody takes the train anywhere. It's so expensive, and it's more like I'm retired and I'm gonna look through the mountains kind of experience. Yeah.
Okay, so you lived in Vancouver, but you're from Alberta, like some smaller town.
Yes, I joke it's the Garlic Curtain of Canada a little bit, the prairies. It's where a lot of Ukrainians live and settled in the early 1900s, a lot of diaspora. So I was born and raised in Vegreville, Alberta, which is not officially a sister city to Kolomea, but we have a giant egg, a giant pesinka, like literally a Ukrainian egg in town.
Is it painted?
Yeah, it's painted and everything. Like it really is, it's the world's largest pesinka. I'm not sure that that's still true, but
how big is it?
It's pretty big. I would say I don't know, it's big and it spins and it's in this little park in town. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yes, I grew up there and then moved to BC when I was about 15 years old with my mom and lived in Vancouver for the rest of that time until just last year when I became houseless and have been spending a lot of time back and forth to Ukraine and Canada. And now, Kyiv is home.
And both of your parents are Ukrainian, right?
Yeah, both my parents have some connection to it. My Tato, my dad's side, a lot more. And so it was just, I don't know, it's always been a huge part of our life. In Canada, we would say we're Ukrainian. There's words growing up that I probably didn't know in English, really, because we just said them in Ukrainian. Even calling my dad, I don't call him dad, I call him Tato. So it's just, it's always been a part of my life.
Okay, and you said where you grew up, it's a big, Ukrainian diaspora, right?
Yes.
And so how was it like, do people speak Ukrainian amongst each other, or it's mostly English with maybe like some Ukrainian words every now and then?
I would say it's like Ukrainian mix. I think back in the day, of course, a lot of them, when they came over, they would speak Ukrainian. And some maybe still at home, but because now it's like second, third, fourth generation, it's this diaspora. So maybe the main language is Ukrainian, but like, for example, nobody in my family would use the word wait. Everything is chukai, chukai, chukai. Like, so it's kind of a mix. But growing up, like my babusia would always incorporate Ukrainian language. So she'd kind of speak this like mix sort of thing, and her accent was always there. And yeah.
So let's talk about your ancestors there. Then, do you know who was the first part of your family that came to Canada?
Yeah, so they would have come over in the like around 1920-ish, kind of just before that, I guess World War I time, sort of. It's always been a little bit tricky to figure out exactly where they've come from and who. My babusia side is a little bit easier that we've tracked it, but my didus was very like lips zipped. He was from Ukraine and that was it, and there were no details. And I just think during that time, a lot of people, you know, were just trying to get away and for this better life in Canada. And so, yeah, I mean, to me, almost, it's not that it doesn't matter, but I know that my diaspora, like I'm from Ukraine, that's my ancestry. So all of it is a part of me in some way. Yeah. I know definitely the Western side, that's where a lot of the diaspora came from in those times. So, yeah.
Okay. And so, I mean, you're very in touch with the Ukrainian culture.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll talk about, you know, what you're dancing and all of that in a bit. But so you grew up in Canada, you identified as more Ukrainian than Canadian. Yep. How was the education system in Canada in reference to Ukraine? Did you know a lot about it? It's like studying it's like in school or something like this?
Yeah, actually. So in Vegreville, where I grew up, in the elementary school there, we have a Ukrainian bilingual program. So I went to school learning Ukrainian language a little bit, it was kind of like a part-time class right since grade 1. And so it's just always in that community, it was always very involved, even in Edmonton, the city that's close. There's a number of different Ukrainian bilingual schools. Everybody Ukrainian dances, everybody goes to Ukrainian church, there's just, you know, Malanka season, it's like everybody piles into a hall and eats good food and dances the night away. And it's just kind of always been a really big part of it. And it's really actually a community. I think there's a lot of areas that have community, but when it's like, oh, you're Ukrainian, I'm Ukrainian. Okay, I guess we're friends. It's very, very simple.
Oh, nice. And then, so you celebrate a lot of these major Ukrainian holidays, right? So, you celebrate Christmas on the 25th or the 7th?
So growing up, we were so lucky because we were Ukrainian. We had 2 Christmases always. Okay. I realize now that it's changed and Ukraine has just moved to the 25th. Yeah. But I think my family, the 6th and 7th will still be special. We'll still gather. We'll still celebrate. I don't think anyone's going to knock down on our door and say, you can't do that anymore. Yeah. Malanka season, so into the middle of January, celebrated. Yeah, it's just always... We always had like double the holidays growing up, and I can't see a bad thing about it, really.
And then you celebrate Pascha as well, right?
Yes, Easter time. So making bread. We grew up making our baskets, going to church, having them blessed. Again, sitting around with your whole community, getting to eat and just hang out and be Ukrainian. I don't know. It's just I'm very thankful for growing up in that kind of community and just having that connection to my ancestry, to who I am, to where we came from, even way over in Canada.
Okay, yeah, I know these are like the major holidays, and yeah, I understood that you probably did celebrate these. Yeah. What about these lesser known national holidays? For example, Day of the Ukrainian Defender.
So I started to learn about more of those ones probably as I was older, you know, when the internet came, when we got a big computer at the house, I could type things in on Google and start to understand more of those kind of holidays and honor them in certain different ways. For example, like Women's Day. I don't know.
Women's Day.
Yeah, I don't know if it's an official thing in Canada or not. But I just started incorporating that into my life, you know, getting my girlfriend's flowers or little things like that. Even things like older traditional holidays like Ivan the Kupala and stuff in the summer. Yeah. Even if we just all gathered on that day and maybe didn't do the actual traditions, we still just made something of it.
You know the tradition, right?
Yes.
Ivan the Kupala?
Yeah, so jumping over some fire.
Yeah,
and
so they make these like head wreaths and then they jump over the fire. Yeah. And it's only single women, I guess, non-married women, they do this?
The idea is to be waiting for your man. So you make your wreath, you're putting it into the river, and whatever lucky gentleman picks it up has to come and find you. And yeah, it's just, it's cool stuff to learn about.
You know, I love these Ukrainian traditions because I feel like in the US we have some traditions, but they're more fake. Yeah. Yeah, it's like Halloween. It was, you know, adopted from maybe the Mexico, you know, Dia de los Muertos. but then it got co-opted by the candy companies, and now we're just like buying a bunch of candy.
It's just a North American.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Same thing with like Valentine's Day, these kinds of things. And I think in Ukraine or some of these other countries that we just bring it back down to the roots of why we're doing these things.
Yeah.
And that's really important.
I noticed like a lot of these holidays in Ukraine, it's like pagan holidays.
Yeah, which is funny because like so many people are, you know, either Orthodox or Catholic, but there's still the pagan holidays that are celebrated and kind of honored. And that's just a cool dynamic that they can still do both and find them both very important.
Yeah. And one thing I wanted to ask you about, since you're part of this Ukrainian diaspora, I mean, I asked the other Kaitlyn like this question.
Yeah.
And I'm just very interested. So I feel at least there is a difference between like Ukrainian diaspora and then Ukrainians in Ukraine. Do you feel this difference?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the more I've traveled back and forth, especially like quickly, like spending 3 or 4 months in Ukraine and then going home for 3 or 4 months, you see this difference because the diaspora it's not that they're stuck in their old ways, but they are diaspora. So if some of them, you know, lots of diaspora maybe has never actually been to Ukraine, even though they celebrate all these traditions in Canada, being Ukrainian Canadians. So they're very like, this is how we do it. And that's it sometimes. And I think in Ukraine, they're evolving and wanting to be a different kind of way and taking these steps. And so sometimes the diaspora is a little bit stubborn to this. But I would say the Ukrainian Canadian is one thing and then Ukrainian, but there is this really beautiful overlap.
Yeah. No, a lot of these Ukrainians abroad, like diaspora, they're very like proud, you know?
Oh, for sure.
They kind of miss their country, their culture, their people so much that they try to preserve it the best they can, like within their own, like the new country.
Absolutely.
And I noticed this divide when it was like after this election, Poroshenko and Zelensky.
Yes.
And I was in this big bubble, where everyone I knew, they were going to vote for Poroshenko. They're saying Zelensky's like bad for the country, whatever. Then you look at the election map, and it basically every oblast in Ukraine voted for Zelensky, except for voted for Zelensky, except for Lviv. They voted for
the West.
Yeah, Poroshenko, but only Lviv. And then when you look at the votes of Ukrainians abroad that's still Ukrainian citizens, the overwhelming majority of them voted for Poroshenko as well. Yeah, so it's like it's a little disconnect from the rest of the country, you know?
I think even within the country, there's a divide. And there kind of always has been. And that's for many different reasons, that it's kind of like the East and the West. And my family's from the West. And so we, kind of always joke that we always wanted to explore the East. And especially now, I think with the full-scale invasion, it's somewhat mending that fence, but also maybe not entirely. That everybody has big ideas about things and all Ukrainians, it's like this, and this is what they think, and sure, that's it. Yeah. So it's kind of funny, but
sure, that's it.
That's it. That's how my parents would say, like, that's it, or my grandparents.
So. No, I like how you incorporate like Ukrainian words into your English. Yeah, because I do that a lot too.
It's just become natural now, and I live with a bunch of internationals, and so I'm always trying to encourage them to use even just basic words. It really does matter what we're here.
Yeah, it's so funny for me when I go abroad or when I go back home to the U.S., a lot of times I incorporate these Ukrainian words, and I'm speaking English and I'll say random Ukrainian words and I won't even realize it. Like, what the hell are you saying?
Yeah.
Like,
See, for me in Canada, it's normal because
Yeah.
I'm around mostly Ukrainians, I would say. A lot of my friends, really good friends, are Ukrainian, so we just do that anyways. So it's kind of nice.
Yeah, and so I want to ask you as well. So you grew up in a Ukrainian community?
Yeah.
Did you meet any Russians while you were in Canada, like growing up? Russian people?
Not really in the Alberta sphere where I was growing up, like when I was younger. When I did move to Vancouver, it's a mixed bag of everybody. Vancouver is a huge city of all kinds of different immigration. And so, did connect with people that are not divided, but maybe their dad was from Russia, but their mom was from Ukraine. And so they're kind of struggling with this identity, or Georgians, or different, all over different people. When I danced in Vancouver, actually, I danced with a couple of people that were Russian who did Russian folk dance, maybe when they were kids in Russia, now have lived in Canada. And there isn't maybe as many Russian groups or communities that way, or they're maybe not as tight knit as the Ukrainian ones. So then they joined us, and it just kind of became, there's always, maybe there should have been tension, but we're all still humans. We're all still people. And they were engaging in all our culture and honoring it in a way. So it was kind of an interesting thing.
Yeah, because I understand there's a lot of Ukrainians in Canada.
Totally.
And I haven't looked at the statistics for the US, but I feel there's more Russians in the US than there are Ukrainians in the US.
Yeah, I don't know what the numbers. I know on the
Yeah.
East Coast there's a lot of Ukrainians, like
Yeah.
around New York, Philadelphia, Chicago. But I think on the West side there's definitely more Russians.
Yeah.
Whenever I've spent time in California, I've met a lot more Russians in California than Ukrainians, let's say.
Because in LA, there's like a whole kind of, Russian community.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
in Los Angeles. And yeah, I was, unfortunately, I was dating a Russian girl, yeah, for many years back in LA.
Yeah.
And I was introduced to all our Russian friends, and I got kind of introduced as well to the Russian community
Yeah.
and, how they live, this big bubble that they live in, like in West Hollywood. It was very interesting to me. I met one Ukrainian through them as well. But yeah, it was very interesting. This is why I ask you about like Russians, because
Yeah.
I mean, growing up, you probably didn't really care too much about them. You maybe heard, like Holodomor. Learned about the Holodomor.
Yeah, I always knew the history, but
Yeah, but you didn't really, because I'm sure what I'm trying to say is I'm sure your perspective about Russians has changed, right? From
Absolutely.
growing up to now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always knew the history, the Soviet Union, all of this kind of, let's say, oppression and different things and struggle that Ukrainians have had. Not just Ukrainians, though, a lot of these countries that were a part of the Soviet Union. And I think in 2014, it really started to shift for me. And I was already, 17, 18 when that happened. And so I had access to really understanding and diving into the history and what's actually happening currently. And then living in Ukraine, it was also a very different experience. And so my perspective, yes, of course, has changed. And now living in the country that's struggling against them or, fighting this war against them. As much as I want to hate all of them and be really angry, that's not super helpful. It's not going to help me do what I need to do. So I have to just try to focus on the good stuff. And yes, we can be really mad, but also how can we hate 140 million people? They also are struggling in some ways from a country that's incredibly corrupt. So I think we have to try to look at the humanity of it. It's not to say that I'm not angry sometimes and want to just scream about it. And I do, but I try not to dwell on that too much or use my energy towards it, I guess.
Yeah. No, I've been living here a long time, and it's just like the more you learn about Ukraine, the history, the more you kind of start to hate
Totally. Oh, for sure.
Russia.
Yeah.
And yeah, speaking of this, I was at the Holodomor Museum a few days ago. It was like for this Holodomor Remembrance
Memorial,
Day.
yeah.
Yeah. What did you do that day?
I was actually on a run. We were out on a delivery. So we were on the road along, not quite the front line, but we were delivering to civilians and military. So
What were you delivering?
So civilians, we delivered cleaning packs, dog food, cat food. And then to military, we delivered a couple Starlinks, these self-heating cans now that it's getting cold. This was kind of a small one. We were just gone for like 48 hours. Just one vehicle back out, come back to Kyiv, repack, and then we'll hit the road this week.
We'll talk more in depth about that in just a sec.
Totally.
But yeah, so I went to this Holodomor Museum, on the Holodomor Remembrance Day.
Yeah.
And we were talking about like traditions earlier as well. And it's really interesting. I love it how they keep it alive. They gather near this memorial and the museum. Have you seen the like memorial of the little girl,
The little girl holding,
with the wheats?
Yeah, I've been to the museum a number of years ago, but it's definitely time to go back.
Yeah, I've been there like 2 or 3 times already. And yeah, then you could see all these people because they have this tradition. They light the candles.
Yeah.
So everyone was just passing around candles. It was all for free. You just light your candle, and then you'd help them put them on the hill.
Yeah.
And then they had these priests like the Batki. They dressed. They did like a speech. They were talking about the struggles of the Ukrainian people during this time, 1932 and 33.
Yeah.
And then everyone after that, they went inside to the museum, and the museum, they have, it's a lot of like facts about what happened during this time. And they have these books, and they have one book for every oblast in Ukraine.
Oh, wow.
And then if you open the book, it has like this index of, different regions in the oblast, different cities, regions. And then you go to that page, and then it has all the names of people that are documented that have died.
Yep.
So I was there with a friend, and then she was looking at the book, and then she was finding her ancestors that died because they have similar last names. And she was from like this small village, so everyone knows everybody. And she goes, "Oh, I have family friends that have this last name. I will call them later and just see if like this is their ancestor."
Connected.
And then she called, and it was one of them connected. This was like their great grandfather or something like this.
Yeah.
And they're all in these books.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, so many people are affected in that. And so I've never confirmed exactly that my family would have been, but in those areas, it's absolutely likely that all of our diaspora was affected by that in some way. And of course, to understand that is, it makes me very, very angry that we kind of allowed this to happen. So.
Yeah. No, it's a struggle for I don't know, Ukraine and Ukrainian independence.
Yeah. It's been a long fight.
Yeah, it's
been a very
definitely
long fight.
definitely a struggle. I was telling one of the previous guests, the Ukrainian people, they just want to be free. They just want to live on their lands. They want to be They're peaceful people.
Yep.
You know, but they're kind of just geographically, they're in this like worse spot. It's like when Western empires want to go east, they pass through Ukraine. Eastern empires want to go west, they pass through Ukraine. They just ruin it both ways.
Yep.
And it's really sad. And finally, when Ukraine is trying to get some stability after the Euromaidan, protests, then it happens again where someone interferes in their sovereignty, and it's just really sad.
I think it's a simple ask. We just want to be free. We just want to live our lives. What's so bad about that? But the fight has to continue until that's fact for this country.
Yeah. So back to Canada. So I know we were talking about traditions and how you keep them alive.
Mm-hmm.
You're a Ukrainian traditional dancer?
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I grew up dancing from a very young age. My parents will always say that they couldn't keep me out of the dance studio. Both my parents actually Ukrainian danced into their kind of adulthood just for fun, again, kind of connecting to the community. And so I've just always done it. The studio is kind of my safe space. Mm-hmm. And I always found it really interesting to study the dance from different regions and understand how the traditions connect to dance. And, of course, it all comes from the village. And now it's been adapted to stage, and it's become this like very technical, amazing thing.
Yeah. So, with the other Kaitlyn, there's like so many parallels here.
Yes.
Yeah. So
we are the Kaitlyns.
Yeah, exactly. The two Kaitlyns, they're both from Canada. They're both Ukrainian, Canadian. They both do Ukrainian traditional dance.
Yeah. I mean, we met in Ukraine.
Met in Ukraine.
That is how we connected. Her being from Manitoba, me being from Alberta and BC. We met in this very city here in Kyiv, probably, I think that's almost 8 years ago now. And I mean, we joke that we're each other's soulmates. Maybe it's the name, maybe it's, of course, the similarities and backgrounds. But there's a lot of us like this. We lived with 5 other girls doing the same thing. And, we are all still connected. We all have group chats. We talk all the time and, talk about dance, talk about life, talk about Ukraine, all kinds of things. So.
And what is your like, fondest memory doing the traditional dance back in Canada?
Back in Canada, growing up, it was quite competitive. So going to dance competitions was always fun because I'm like actually the least competitive person. I don't care. I just want to do it for fun. I go to a hockey game. I'm like, tell me who to cheer for. Like, I'm just on board to drink a beer and enjoy the game. So I think coming together and doing dance competitions is always kind of fun. You get to see people from all over the province and experience all their different dances. And there's a number of different Ukrainian festivals around the country. In Vegreville, where I grew up, my tato used to run and is actually still the president of the Vegreville Pesinka Festival. So it's like a weekend-long festival with music, dance, all of that. And the stage that it always happens on, where these big dance groups get to dance on, it was like always my dream to dance there. And I got to accomplish that, which was really cool. So I think there's so many highlights that have been for me. And what it's brought me, it brought me all the way over to Ukraine to study and dance here, which, a long time ago, little Kaitlyn would have never thought that was going to happen.
Yeah. And so when was the first time you've been to Ukraine?
My first real kind of memory of being in Ukraine and good experience was in 2016. My dad and I had come over, and there was a festival happening in Lviv that we went to. We traveled around the western part of the country and went to the mountains and kind of just did this little loop. And it was really special to be here with him, who, connected me so much to our diaspora, to where we came from. So it was just really fun. And during that festival, actually in Lviv, it was honestly, it was like Canada rocked Lviv for that whole weekend, because there was a number of different dance groups from Canada that had come over, choirs, different things like that. So you'd be walking around the square and you'd be like, oh, hey, I know you. Oh, hey, I know you. Which was really fun.
Yeah. How do you like Lviv, by the way?
It used to be my favorent city. Sorry, Lviv. But I love it. I mean, again, there's so much history there. I love every city for so many different reasons. There's lots to see, lots to do there. When we lived there, we lived right on the square, so that was cool. We were always where the action was, and yeah, it's great. It is great. I think right now it's a little different, but
yeah, I've been to Lviv so many times.
Totally.
And whenever I go, it's like, okay, Rynok plus Rynok is great.
Totally.
There's so much to do there. It's beautiful. I made this joke last time I was there. I'm like, I never really noticed. There's like a museum. Like every second door is either
something.
Yeah, it's like a museum, or like a chocolate shop or something like that, a cafe or chocolate,
coffee.
Coffee shop. Yeah, and yeah, to me it was like, okay, but it's like very beautiful. And then you walk out and there's like some streets that have, you know, like cafes, bars. It's also beautiful. But once you get beyond that outer layer, there's not really much going on
It's just
there.
a regular
Yeah.
city.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's very like
It's got a
yeah.
big hype. It is so beautiful, but it's you know, there's other cities that are also so beautiful. Ivano-Frankivsk, Ternopil, like Poltava, they all have this energy about them.
Yeah, like Western Ukraine definitely has a different like vibe or energy than the central and, you know, Eastern Ukraine
side for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I kind of like the vibe in Western Ukraine. I really love how they keep all the Ukrainian traditions alive. You know, the language, they're very strict on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't speak Russian in those countries, that part of the country, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I really love this. I know, like I was living in Odessa for a while, and a lot of people just spoke Russian, and they were just fine. They love Ukraine. They support the Ukrainian military. It just they want to speak Russian because it's their like language.
It was kind of the norm there. It's the same, yeah.
Yeah. And that was cool and all, but after a while, I was like, oh, I don't know, your country's at war.
We're still in Ukraine, so
save the
we could
Russian-speaking people, and you're
Yeah.
speaking Russian. I don't know. But either way, I don't want to tell them how to live. Like they're supporting the Ukraine and their military, so I feel like they should be able to speak whatever language they want to. But I'm like, ugh.
I think the language is always going to be a complicated topic, but I've definitely noticed a large change. Like when we lived here in Kyiv, everybody spoke Russian 7-8 years ago, but now you don't hear it as often. You do, but it's definitely more to the Western side, and everybody's speaking Ukrainian, which is great. I think it is great, and it's important to make that change. It's just going to take some time.
Oh, totally. Yeah, I have had many friends that's, you know, they used to speak Russian before the war, and then they switched to Ukrainian.
Yeah, same. Yeah, same.
No, it's great. So, speaking of the war, what were you doing the 24th of February, 2022?
Very interesting story, actually. I was on the Las Vegas Strip with my best friend.
Wow.
We had planned a trip since like 2020. The pandemic changed everything. And so in February 2022, I was actually on like a month-long road trip through the Western states and Arizona and Nevada. And we were meeting at the end of the month in Las Vegas. And yeah, it was our second night. We were going out to a show and we were sitting at a bar, Senor Frogs, you know, drinking those tall, great drinks. And I'd been watching the news quite closely and really paying attention. I've never looked away from Ukraine. And I mean, I think like a lot of us, I never thought it, like really, it's not going to happen. Come on. And I think maybe deep down we knew it might. And I remember my tato texting me and saying, "Have you seen the news?" And I was like, "Well, no, what's going on?" And, "Oh, no, enjoy your night. Like, we'll talk tomorrow." But I wasn't able to I got on FaceTime and chatted, and then we just sat there. I don't know. I was very numb. And I remember actually the bartender, you know, two really pretty dressed up girls sitting at a bar starting to cry and like not understanding what's going on. He just like slides a free drink across the table. And then we had chatted to him and explained kind of what was going on. My best friend that was with me is also Ukrainian, and we grew up doing all kinds of Ukrainian activities together. So it was a very, I don't know, I just almost couldn't believe it, I think. And it obviously, you know, a little bit tainted our trip to Vegas.
Yeah. So, I know, to me, that was a very, like, it's one of the most memorable days of my life.
Totally. Yeah.
I
I'll
always
never forget.
compare it to like 9/11 in the US. Everyone remembers what they were doing during 9/11.
Yeah.
You know, just the shock that how can this happen?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And then you're like, okay, this is going to change the world.
Yes.
And this is basically how, you know, the 24th of February was in 2022 to me. And it sounds like, you know, to you at least, you as well. And so after that, so you're in Vegas, whatever. When did you start to realize that you want to be in Ukraine?
So prior to 2022, I had plans to move back to Ukraine in 2020. And I worked in a hospital. So when the pandemic kicked off, I was one of the only people left with a job. So that changed my plans. Then in 2022, I'd taken some time off work in February, decided to go on a little road trip, soul searching again and deciding what I was going to do. And watching the news, I thought, okay, well, maybe going to Ukraine is not going to be an option. And then it kind of just became a no-brainer that I had to come back, war or no war. I'd been putting it off since, like I said, since 2020. And I have two hands on a heartbeat, and I knew I could make a difference in some way, small or big. So I just had to do it, had to be a part of it.
Okay, and then this leads up to Ukrainian Patriot. How did you get involved with them?
Yeah,
and can you explain briefly what Ukrainian Patriot is?
Yeah, so we are a nonprofit organization. We work off 5 pillars of operation in no particular order: humanitarian, protective gear, rebuilding, PTSD and trauma assistance, and of course, medical. And so we still work off of all of these pillars. We definitely built our airplane while flying it in the last nearly 3 years. I think most of us that started at the beginning there did not know anything about running an NGO or were humanitarian in that sphere. We all come from such different backgrounds. But in fact, that actually really built us up in a great way because we all have a different perspective. Our founder, Lana Nyland, is a Canadian who lives in Kyiv here. She danced with Viersky and moved over in the early 2000s. So she's been here since the Orange Revolution, Maidan, and now the full scale. And I remember at the beginning sitting in Vegas and then traveling, making my way back to Canada because after February 24th, I just felt like I had to get home to Canada and be around my people and figure out what we were going to do, how we were going to stand up to help. She was posting live videos on on Facebook, giving updates and, videoing tanks driving past her place and the grocery stores being empty. And, everybody kind of telling her, you got to come back to Canada. Like, what are you doing? You got to leave. And she said, no, we have to do something. And so within about a week after the full-scale invasion, I sent her a message and how can I get involved? And a lot of us did that, and it's just kind of transpired from there. So we're now registered in Canada, the US, and in Ukraine. And we've done a lot of really great work, and we will continue to do so.
Okay, and the founders are Canadian?
Lana is, she is Canadian. And then the co-founders, there's a number of Canadians and Americans that all came together. Zoom does wonderful things, even at the beginning of a war with no power and things. So they all came together. And like I said, I think within about 2 weeks, it was established of what our name was going to be, what our mission was going to be. And I'm very certain that at that time, we all knew that this was for the long run, not just a little kind of Band-Aid solution.
Yeah, and I was talking to you backstage, and you said that this is the first time you come to Ukraine without buying a ticket.
There's no flight home at the moment. Yes. Yeah, I have come back and forth since the beginning of the full scale. Like I said, I first came 1 year after. When I got involved with Ukrainian Patriot, I was able to do so much from my laptop. Fundraisers, we sent a number of different items. And I remember in the summer, actually, of 2022, Lana had come to Canada. And her and I had a conversation. I said, I'm coming. I don't know exactly when. I'm going to figure it out, but I'm coming. And so instead of making kind of a rational decision and just booking a flight and going right away, I made a plan. I said, by February, I'm going to be there. I always like to do things around my birthday. It's at the end of January. So I always make decisions around that time or make a change. Then I had to sit down with my parents and some of my friends and say, this is my plan. I'm not asking you. I'm telling you this is what I'm doing. And so February 2023, I came for the first time for 7 weeks, went home, spent about 5 months at home, came back and forth. And yeah, this time it's acquiring a visa, and Ukraine is going to be home for the next little while.
Okay, so Ukraine is your home. Kyiv is your home, I
Kyiv
imagine?
will be the home base, yeah.
Yeah, Kyiv's not a bad place to have a base.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. So can you talk to me about how your day-to-day life is, at this Ukrainian Patriot organization? So how does your typical day at work look?
Every day is different. And so you got to be able to just divide and conquer whatever the tasks may be. Like I said, for me, I run our international administration. I'm our volunteer coordinator for internationals. When I'm on the ground here, I'm a team lead, and I sit on our Canadian board. So sometimes it can be sitting at my laptop all day with meetings, working on documents, getting kind of the back end work sort of stuff. I've become an expert on spreadsheets in Google Drive. Sometimes it could be being at our warehouse, unloading a truck or reloading trucks and packing items for a delivery. Sometimes it can be doing events, fundraisers, different things. So really every day it varies, and I'm a busybody, like I said, so it's really nice that it's always like pew pew. We're just doing stuff all the time, and really it is a 24-hour a day job. Even when I'm back in Canada, I'll be on my phone. Like we're saying, our signal notifications are always over the top, but I'm kind of always working and always doing things because somebody could message and say they need something, so we need to put in a request, or somebody needs access to something, or a volunteer has reached out, or a volunteer is coming into country, or there's just a lot to be doing all the time, and I'm always happy to do it.
Yeah, and you not only work in the warehouse, you also, go missions to the missions to the east, right?
Yeah, doing deliveries. So our focus is frontline areas, those that are affected by what's going on, those caught in the crossfire. So from Kharkiv to Kherson, we've been along that whole front. So yeah, it can be in the warehouse packing stuff, and then packing the cars, and then hitting the road, whether it's with 1, 2, 3 vehicles, convoy, and kind of doing different drops. Typically in our runs, it's a mixed bag across our 5 pillars. So We will do, civilian drops. We will drop things off at a hospital or a stab point, meet military. And then one of our pillars is PTSD and trauma assistance, which has really taken off in the last year. This is really important to be rebuilding the people now. We can't wait until the war is over. We need to be uplifting them. And there's so many internally displaced people. And so running resilience programming, dance therapy, art therapy, English classes, kind of building up women and mothers who are now kind of single mothers potentially because their husbands are on the front or, their husbands have passed on and different things like that. So we can do all of these things in just a few days when we're on a run, which is great.
No, it sounds like you met so many people through your work. And
Yes.
Is there anybody that you met that had just such a inspirational story that where you felt you're doing the right thing with what you're doing?
There is so many. And it's one person that I would love to highlight, like our founder, of course, and all the internationals that we work with. But last year, a really lovely gentleman, Nazar, came on our team, and he's, young in his 20s. And in 2014, he grew up in Kharkiv. In 2014, his dad became a volunteer defender and moved his family to Kyiv because it was safer. And then now in 2022, now it's full-scale invasion. So his family moved out of the country, his sisters and his mom, but him and his dad are still here. And he has dedicated nearly 3 years to just volunteering for his country, gave up a really great job, is not going to university, is so passionate about this country and what he can do for it. And he does that in all spheres of things. His connects, organizing us, understanding where we're going, planning our trips. And, like I said, he's just a young man in his 20s. And it's inspiring for me, even though I'm kind of like his big sister in that way. He's just a really cool guy. And every time I come back, we were actually just chatting about it, that it's crazy. We've only known each other for a year because we feel like family. We really feel like family.
Well, yeah, local people here, they're not, just doing a job. They're like fighting for their existence.
Totally. And
Yeah,
he's so passionate about it. And it really, we joke sometimes he's a little jaded, but how could he not be? Look at his life. And so, when this is all over, I can't wait to show him the rest of the world and take him around Canada and share his story, because what he's doing is really important. And having him on our team is just incredible.
Yeah, and you said you went from, you usually go from, not usually, but you go from Kharkiv to Kherson, helping people, right?
Yeah.
Kharkiv, it's dangerous. Kherson is a lot more dangerous.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any close calls?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. I have this joke with Lana because I know her through dance, that we've traded in our ballet slippers for bulletproof vests. And if you told me that 3 years ago, I would be like, that's not Kaitlyn. Like, no way. Like I said, I'm not competitive. I'm not really an angry person. I don't think I could really pull a trigger on anything. Yeah, definitely. Being in Chasiv Yar, being in Kherson. I think Kherson, we kind of joke sometimes it's like the armpit of Ukraine, that people forget that it is actually very much the front line. The air raid doesn't even go off there half the time. It's just constant because they're in artillery range. I have many vivid memories of just drinking morning coffee, like in the little square in the apartment buildings, and just hearing incoming, outgoing. And even just knowing that I know incoming sounds or outgoing, and having that like bizarre comfort that, oh, don't worry, it's outgoing. That's us. That's us guys. That's our guys. And then just still sipping on your coffee. Drones are a very scary thing, I think, now, because, all of a sudden they're there and you can be driving, and what do? You're a bigger target. But it's really important to us that we also stay safe, get the best intelligence that we can for where we go, and be adaptable. I've definitely been on runs where we're supposed to drop at this point with a POC, and nope, just kidding. An hour before, we're moving somewhere different because we're not helpful if we're not here. So we try to do our best. But of course, there's lots we can't control.
Yeah, what is the most requested supply, that's you need to deliver?
There's a lot of things, but I think as many of us know, tourniquets, medical, the government simply just doesn't have the means to provide all of these things all the time for our defenders. A tourniquet, you're not just carrying one of them, you're carrying maybe 3 or 4. And so I would say that that's probably the number one really, really important thing for our defenders. And then for some civilians in these areas, if they're caught in this crossfire, they don't maybe have access to basic needs, hygiene, food, bread, things like that. It's those are just really, again, the basic necessities are sometimes the most important thing to bring. And seeing people light up over a hygiene bag or a loaf of bread is a very interesting thing to live in 2024 when we have so much around the world that we should be able to help everybody.
It just like it's so fulfilling for the soul, right? When you're helping people like this.
Yeah, I think so many people helped me, maybe not feeding me. I've never struggled that way, but it's to give back. And it's, I don't know, we are the group that gives light and love and hope and connection. Everything we do comes with hugs. Every food bag I pass along, every hygiene kit, every tourniquet comes with a hug to bring this connection to people as well. It's not just about the tangible items that we're taking. It's to really impact these people that we're delivering to, that this crazy Canadian Ukrainian girl is here and I care and I will come back. And returning now is amazing. When we were just on this last run, we met with the POC that we've been working with since the beginning of the war. She's like my second mom. Like, I know her so well. And so, you know, she gets out of the van and it's like, Katrusia. And it's so heartwarming to know that we've made a difference for her. She connects us to other communities and, you know, we deliver to those same communities. We build rapport with them. They know that we're coming back. They know that we care. And that's, I don't know, there's not words for that. I think it's just a feeling.
Yeah, you've seen a lot. You've seen a lot in Ukraine. You've talked to a lot of people.
Yeah.
You've done so much work for Ukraine. What is something you wish more people understood about Ukraine, like at the current state?
I think what's actually happening. Every time I've gone back to Canada, I kind of have this joke that I'm more and more of a not nice person. And it's mostly just because my perspective has changed so much. You know, for example, when I just got back this last summer, I caught myself driving with the windows cracked, listening to no music, nothing, just silently driving, you know, in the prairies where we have this joke, like, are we in Alberta or are we in Ukraine? Because it looks so similar. And I think for people to understand the constant interruption of life here. Now, of course, many Ukrainians have just accepted it, but our news, our media is like so superficial BS sometimes. And it's really frustrating, which is why it's really important for people like me, people like Kaitlyn, people like, you know, all of our internationals. Right now, we have a guy from Sweden, from Finland, from New Zealand, when they go home to talk about what's really happening, to say like, you know, last night I fell asleep to air defense. That's not a normal thing, but it is normal here. Or this morning when I wanted to do my hair, I'm go to plug in my blow dryer and there's no power. So this kind of constant interruption. I know people see it on Instagram a little bit or Facebook or these kinds of things, but really actually understanding how much it's interrupting life here, how your mental state is just kind of in this acceptance mode. And this privilege that we live with in North America, like, my goodness, we don't have a lot to complain about. I mean, of course we can complain about certain things, but just the real understanding and not falling into this propaganda of all medias, not just Russian, you know, sometimes the States, sometimes Canada. We love our juicy headlines that are maybe not super directively true.
Yeah. And you were in Kyiv like 2 or 3 days ago, right?
Yeah, I just got back on Sunday night, late night. We were on a run, but I've been in Kyiv for about 2 weeks.
Okay, yeah, because two days ago and 3 days ago, there was a big attack on Kyiv.
Yeah.
Were you here for that?
Yeah, so actually I arrived 2 weeks ago almost. That Sunday morning attack, that was one of the largest attacks for some months. Yeah, that was my welcome back to Kyiv, was no power and very loud air defense through the morning, and just laying there thinking, am I crazy to be here? But then immediately thinking, no, I'm not. It's fine. We're gonna conquer. It's okay.
Yeah. I live in a high-rise building, and I live on one of like the upper floors.
Yeah.
And I can see towards like the center. And yeah, that one night, I guess 2 weeks ago, as well as like 2 or 3 days ago, the 2 weeks ago one was it was more intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see you know, the drones fly in the air. I can see the air defense going off.
Yeah, same at our apartment.
It's so surreal.
I can just open my balcony and, you know, watch the little spotlight and hear do 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 do, and then it's quiet, and then big explosion or whatever, and it's just this, again, it's the kind of a bizarre reality and acceptance.
Yeah.
And I know many people are like, well, why aren't you in a shelter? But if I was going to go to a shelter every time there's an air raid, I'd spend my whole life down there at this moment. So
no, it's true, and it's basically just acceptance. People get numb, sure, but it's like you just accept. Yeah, this is the reality here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was living in Odessa, and there was air alarms like all the time, and it was so loud. It was consistently more loud than in Kyiv. And lately, in Odessa, they've been attacking it hard. So there was this place that they attacked, I think it was like yesterday, or it was on the 25th. So yesterday, and they attacked. So they attacked it. They basically blew up the whole street. The whole street is like in rubble. Buildings next to it, apartment buildings next to it are destroyed. And then a few days before that, when they were attacking Kyiv, they also attacked that same street in Odessa. And I used to live like a block and a half, 2 blocks away from that street.
Yeah.
I used to, like, the corner of that street was this coffee shop that I used to go to and work from. And even before then, they attacked that street when I was there, not as intense as this last attack. And I'm just like wondering, like, what is on this street? It's just like a normal street. I don't know, it's just so crazy for me and so surreal. Like, I was messaging people I know that live in the area, like, are you okay? And I've been messaging them like 2 or 3 times this last week.
Yeah.
Because they've been attacking that same area.
Multiple times. And so, yeah, you have to wonder, like, what is there?
Yeah.
I mean, I think we try to make sense of what Russia is doing. Like, what is the rhyme or reason to hitting a children's hospital, hitting a residential street? And I don't know. I honestly don't think there is rhyme or reason. Maybe there's a military target there, but is there? Because you've hit it 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. What?
Yeah.
Why? I honestly sometimes joke that they're just doing this. Like, it seems such nonsense.
Yeah, I think it's just terrorism.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah.
They're just trying to, get the people to submit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they don't want to be terrorized anymore. But this is not how it works.
No.
If people just get angrier and madder.
I was gonna say, nobody's standing down. Your 3-day war is now 3 years, so joke's on you a little bit.
Yeah, I remember I told the story before on the podcast, but I'll tell it again because I feel like it's very relevant here.
Yeah.
So I was in Zaporizhia about 3 weeks ago, about a month ago now. And I was with my friend Kaitlyn. And so, we were there at this music festival. This music festival was like all about traditional Ukrainian, music, modern Ukrainian bands that are like,
cool.
Yeah. Anyways, and it was all underground. They wanted everything to be safe. So it was like in the bunkers. And it was a very interesting festival. And one of the days that we were there for the festival, they attacked this one area near the mall. It was like a lot of foot traffic. They're at a mall. They had this little outdoor arena where people are just selling random things like on the street. And then we go and there's like this grass island between like this kind of highway.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle of this grass island, there's like this crater, from where like the shell hits.
Yeah.
And so we're there and we're like looking around like what were they trying to hit? There's like what was it? Yeah, there was like the mall. I think there was like an epicenter across the street. And then like the Reno. And we're just looking around like, what are they trying to hit?
Why?
And then my buddy, Kaitlyn, was saying, I think they're trying to hit something in this area they just missed. But he's like, but I think they're trying to hit something. And I'm like, okay, if you say so, man, but it's like so weird. Anyways, so the next day there was another attack in the same area, but like a little
bit farther down.
A little further down, but basically the same area. And they hit a kindergarten. And then I'm like, oh, Kaitlyn, is this what they were trying to hit? A kindergarten? They missed
make
it.
sense of that, please.
Yeah, they looked at like the first one, like, okay, we did miss. Kaitlyn, you're right, they did miss. They meant to hit the kindergarten. Thank God the kindergarten was closed that day.
Yeah.
But it's like, what the hell are they doing?
That's what I said.
It's
I just think there's no rhyme or
Yeah.
reason. Like I have spent a long time trying to make sense of it, and now I'm just like, whatever. Not whatever, but okay. It's terrorism. It doesn't matter. They're still destroying infrastructure. They're still, like just last night. Yeah. What are you guys trying to hit in Kyiv? Like I said, falling asleep to air defense and them shooting down drones. Now in Kyiv, of course, there's larger targets, but what is the point here? I don't know. I just don't know that we'll ever make sense of it entirely.
Yeah. And this is what I feel like a lot of people in the West don't really understand. They think that, it's the Russian army versus the Ukrainian army and they're just fighting each other.
Yeah.
Like, no, they're actually targeting civilians as well. And Ukraine is not targeting civilians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is and like I said, in the West or being back in Canada, getting people to really understand what's going on. This war is very complicated that, yes, there are men in trenches fighting, but there's this drone warfare and this air warfare and this side of terrorism to it. Like there is so many factors to what's going on that it's really just not that simple. It's very complicated. And why? Like in Kherson, they're literally targeting civilians for fun.
Yeah.
This is not a world I'm okay to live in. No, we have to stop this.
It's like, you're from Canada. I'm from the US. So I'll make like this kind of analogy. It's like, the US and Canada, they're at war. The war is like near the border. Both armies are fighting. But then now Canada, and you're like at your flats in Texas, you're like, okay, the war's over there. I have like some peace here. But all of a sudden, like a drone hits your building.
Yep.
And it's like, what the hell?
Even though you feel so
I'm not in the
removed from it.
military. I'm like so far away.
Yeah.
Like, why are you attacking my building? And, yeah. And this is basically what it is. Because they're attacking like as far west as like Lviv.
Totally. And that's people don't always understand that. Actually, I had a very funny interaction the last time I was leaving Ukraine in the Heathrow airport. a guy asked me where I had just come from, totally fishing because I have a Ukrainian flag on my backpack. Like, come on, man.
I think
And
he
he's
liked
like, I
you.
just don't understand why you can't fly into Ukraine. What? Like, not to be, sorry, that's a stupid question, but I said, like, well, missiles, all these things, drones, like they can send them all the way to as far as Lviv. Like, they, what do you mean? Why would I fly into Ukraine? Or even understanding how these drones are. We're not talking about like little photography drones. Shaheeds are like the size of a car. Like these are huge, huge things. And so, again, really getting people to understand, and sometimes simplifying it. I use the United States and Canada as an analogy as well. Living in Vancouver, we're only about 2-hour drive from Seattle. So this would just be, what if Seattle just walked in to, they came to the border and just took Vancouver? It's ours now. That's it. End of discussion. Is that okay? Would Canada stand down? No. Most people would say probably not. So sometimes we have to really make it that simple. Of course, it's not that simple, but that is essentially what happened and what's happening. So when people hear that, they're like, oh, but that would never happen. I'm like, yeah, but it is on that side of the world. So let's think about that. Let's see how we can help so that it doesn't continue to happen.
Oh yeah, so Russia has been basically occupying, the eastern part of Ukraine. A lot of it since 2014.
Yeah, it's
a big chunk of it now since 2022. With the whole kind of shift in politics in the U.S., from the Biden administration to this upcoming Trump administration, a lot of people or Trump has been saying he'll end the war in 24 hours. Like, how do you think the war will end with all of this in consideration?
I don't know. I actually remember I was teaching dance when the election was happening, and me and my buddy that I was teaching with kept watching to see like who's going to win. And he has a very good Trump impression as well. So we're driving home, and he's like, Kaitlyn, you're not even going to have to go because Trump's going to end the war in 24 hours. So, why would I have to come back to Ukraine if he's going to end it? I honestly don't know. I don't know how I see this ending. I know Trump has all these great ideas, apparently. How he'll actually implement them, I'm not so sure. And I think a lot of Ukrainians are just kind of, again, in this acceptance of they're kind of at the mercy of other people making decisions for them. And that's a really uncomfortable place to be, but you just have to be there. I don't see it ending in 48 or 24 hours or 3 days or whatever he thinks might happen. And I don't think Ukraine wants to concede any land or anything like that. Crimea, of course, is complicated. They've had it for so long. Lots of these areas they've had for so long, but it's still Ukraine. It was still an oblast. It's still, how can we just let this happen? How can the world just stand by and be like, yeah, I guess they just took it. Oh, well. Oh, well, like, no, like I said, it's not a world I want to live in. So I don't know. That's a loaded question of how I really see it to end. I think it is going to change. I think with Trump settling in, maybe he'll revert what Biden is allowing them to do at the moment, or these kinds of things. And Ukraine might have to stand on their own a little bit more, and they're totally capable of it. But of course, we need the help from all to really end this.
Yeah, it's just really crazy how, with this Russian disinformation, it kind of shifted the mentality of, people in the West, or American people specifically. Because I grew up not liking the Russians, Soviet Union, Russian, the Red Scare. These people, they don't have the same values as us.
No,
they're
totally
anti-democratic. Whatever. So we grew up like that, not liking the Russians, not trusting them, not wanting to engage with them geopolitically too much. And then all of a sudden now, people are saying like, okay, well, let's just agree with them. We'll have an agreement where they can just keep what they have, and then we'll just trust them at that. And, Russia, they're also defending their sovereignty as well in some sick, twisted way and mental gymnastic way in their head. Yeah. So it is so crazy how the mentality of Americans have shifted. And a lot of Republicans, they have, I was talking to a previous guest, Mark, and Mark was saying we do have these war hawk Republican, the ones that want to fight Russia, the ones that don't trust them, the ones that want them to learn their lesson, deplete their military, whatever. But then now they're starting to get outnumbered by these MAGA Republicans. Yeah, these ones that are kind of corrupted in a lot of ways. Yeah, well, they're the propaganda that they're being fed, or the decisions that they're making. And even in that sense, like, how are you the one to decide that, yes, okay, you guys can just have this? Like, Americans, like, they feel, respectfully, they feel like they have this decision for Ukraine because we're giving so much help and whatnot. But let's remind each other that in those first few days, Ukraine didn't fall, Kyiv didn't fall to Russia. And that's not because America had already sent a bunch of stuff.
And so it's kind of like, who are you to decide that? And now, yes, they're falling for this disinformation. They're, falling for this kind of extremism of this being great, making America great. Russia is so great, or all these things. And I just think it's from, this disinformation, this propaganda, this kind of twisted view that is totally directed to these kind of people. And they just fall to it so easily. Just because you read something on Facebook doesn't make it the gospel, right?
Yeah, no.
And we live in that world a lot.
That's true. I'm just scared for what the future holds.
Yeah.
I'm just holding my breath until, January.
Yeah, same.
And then he said he'll end it in 24 hours. Let's see whatever the hell that, I think I know what it means. I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not what I think he means, but I don't know. I'm at like this wait and see approach.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
I think we're just at this acceptance. Me as a Canadian, I can't vote. I didn't have, any contributing to it, but watching it. And then Ukrainians, all of us are just kind of like, okay, let's see. Because I think it really could go either way. I think Trump is not the smartest human, maybe, but the way he speaks is very compelling to people. And so, he's also going to be the president. He's going to have a lot of power.
Yeah. Because, a lot of my friends back home, they say, don't you want not a lot, but some of my friends back home, they say, don't you want the war to be over? Because no more Ukrainians will die. There'll be peace. I'm like, okay, sure. I don't want any Ukrainian people to die. I want there to be peace, sure. But if you implement like the ceasefire or you give Russia what they want, I can't imagine any Ukrainians giving each other high fives. I can imagine Russians giving high fives.
Totally.
We won. We had the land. I can't imagine Ukrainian people like, oh, high five. There's no more deaths. No,
but that's
like,
not.
I can't imagine that. Like
and,
everything
and
was
is
in
that
vain.
actually going to be true?
Yeah.
Like a ceasefire? I can't remember exactly when it was because there's been so much of this talk. But anytime they've tried to agree to a ceasefire, they don't do it anyways. They can't be trusted. So it's kind of that same thing. Like, I mark my words, Putin's going to cross Trump anyways because it's what he always does. And of course, we don't want anybody to continue to die and have this struggle. But if that means we're giving up or we're drawing the line at where it is now, no, that's not. I will not accept that. And I don't think exactly Ukrainians are not going to accept that and be like, woohoo, it's over. I think that's a very interesting way to think. If we think that's possible.
I've met so many Ukrainians that are, risking their life on the front line.
Yeah.
And they've had a lot of trauma. They've seen like a lot of death. And I feel like for them, it would be all in vain. Like, what were we even fighting for then?
Well, totally. I have so many friends already, by Maidan on Hreshchatyk. There are more flags there than I want to have to put there. Family, friends, people I used to dance with, civilians. Like, it's not just those that are defending on the front line. It has to be worth something. It has to be for something. Because otherwise it feels like it's for nothing, and just to concede to this, no, it just doesn't feel like an option.
Okay. Say the war is over, Kaitlyn. Regardless of how it ends, what will you be doing?
I'll still be here, no matter what the outcome is. Even if he ends it in 24 hours, there's still going to be a lot of help that's needed, whether it's with PTSD and trauma assistance, whether it's with rebuilding, whether it's with still helping on the humanitarian sector. There's still going to be a lot of people struggling. This country still needs to make some changes, towards the direction of maybe the EU and NATO and all these things. And I feel some type of responsibility, I think, to Ukraine. It's where my family came from. And I'm a young person. I loved studying history. I don't want to be rereading these same books when I'm 65 and being like, oh yeah, this happened in my lifetime and my grandmother's lifetime. And there's far too many similarities. So yeah, I'll still be here.
What is the biggest issue that you think Ukraine will be facing after the war ends?
I think the corruption and kind of moving in a direction of stepping away from that and having a little more transparency in things and wanting to be better. The people here want that. So now we need to level it up to everybody wanting that, not just one or two guys maybe getting a few extra hryvs in their pocket to do something differently. I think that's going to be a struggle. That's going to be a fight in its own. But we're already moving in that direction. They are. There's a reason everybody stood up in 2014. There's a reason everybody's standing up in 2022. There's a reason that there's so many internationals coming here where I don't think it just ends at Ukraine either. This is actually about this global sphere of democracy and how we need to move in this world.
Yeah. Well, very well said. I feel like corruption is always like a big thing.
Yeah, it's not just Ukraine. Like in Brazil, it's like this. And
every country is corrupt.
Canada, there's everywhere
the US is very corrupt as well.
These small things that we need to work and just be better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on that note, yeah, because we reached basically our time. But
Yeah.
is there anything that we didn't discuss that you want to discuss, Kaitlyn?
I don't think so. No, I think we're, got a well-versed
Oh yeah, no,
conversation here.
it was great
of all
chatting
things.
with you. Yeah, I mean, I've learned so much about the Ukrainian Canadian diaspora.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Our
So,
garlic curtain.
garlic curtain, exactly. That's a new one for me. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you what. Here's part of the podcast where you can plug your organization, Ukrainian Patriot, how
Yeah.
people can support you, and maybe how people can connect with you via social media. So you can look in this camera. You can plug
Sure.
away.
So UkrainianPatriot.org, our website. We are the same Ukrainian Patriot on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and LinkedIn. My Instagram is Kaitlyn Darlene, my middle name. Can find me and message me there or reach out via website, Instagram, socials, any of those things. It's all coming to me anyways. And to get involved, to do something. This is a very large puzzle of this world, and small, big, whatever it is, it does make a difference. It's really important. Whether you're in Ukraine, whether you're in Canada, Australia, Japan, wherever it is, we want people all over the world to support us. You can donate on our website. You can donate in kind donations. You can simply just donate your time and your skills. That's really how it started with me, is using my power in administration and management and all these things to kind of fit into this organization. And so everybody plays a part, small or big. You can do something. Be one of those puzzle pieces. It's really, really important.
Well, I'm very thankful for you being one of the puzzle pieces here
Thank
in
you.
Ukraine.
As are you. I mean, you share everybody's story, and that's also really important. I've actually, watched and learned a lot about different internationals here, and all of us making a difference, kind of uprooting our lives for a bigger cause. There's always something bigger than us that we can contribute to.
Yeah, Slava Ukraini.
Heroim Slava.
Well, thanks so much for coming on, Kaitlyn. I'm going to
Thank you.
sign off right now. So thanks again for watching this episode of Expats in Ukraine with your host, me, Corey. And thank you so much, Kaitlyn, for coming on. And if you want to leave a comment to maybe ask Kaitlyn some questions, because you'll read the comments as well, right?
Yes, yep.
Yeah, feel free to do that. If you like this episode, give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more episodes just like this, I have many more guests coming up, subscribe to our page today. So Kaitlyn, thanks again. And I like to shake the hand of the guest on this
Sure.
side over here. So come on down.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Oh, yeah.